Only me. So make yourself comfortable. You can just do so comfortably, just sit a little bit forward on your chair to begin with. Get that feeling of your weight going down into your feet. Start with the tapping. Gently over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. On your arm, back up. The side. And the upper part of your chest. Down onto your belly. Your legs. Okay. Now sitting back. Feeling your weight. Probably where you'll feel your weight drop down first is through about the middle part of your back. You just sort of get a sense of it spreading out in a way through hips, lower back, buttocks, and that middle part of your back. The shoulders drop. Feeling your rib cage sort of opening up a little bit. Just feeling your breathing, maybe just a little bit deeper into your belly. Feel the rise and fall of your breath. And into the upright position. Now, once again, all the support is from beneath, as it were. So find a position in your chair where that works best for you. And also just be aware you may want some of that extra support for your back. Slightly angled forwards. And that angling forwards not only sort of like, it doesn't quite equalize the weight, but gives you more of a sense of your weight being further forwards in between your feet and your hips, so supported by both. But it also helps with this sense of letting go, releasing in the front of the body. And that's quite useful to get that feeling, because when we come to standing, there's almost a kind of instinctive tightening up, a gripping of ourselves. And so when you're in this position, you can feel, you kind of, if you like, let go or release in, say, your chest and your ribs, and they drop, but then they stop. They don't just sort of like disappear down onto the floor. I know it's a ridiculous notion, and yet it's almost like we feel that that's what's going to happen when we stand up. But your body's not just going to collapse. There is that structure, that strength within your body that will continue to support you. So things like your breathing, that in theory can continue, and all your movement. So just turning your head. shoulders. And going forwards. And then hands down by your sides. And winding around. And then winding around higher up. So you notice I'm exaggerating a little bit so you can see my elbows are still moving. So my whole arm is what I'm trying to rotate, not just the fingers and wrist. Quite an open feeling in your wrist. And then back the other way. Of course, the wrist can be quite a tight joint. You know, if you ever known anybody who has what they call carpal tunnel syndrome, quite often people who work a lot with their hands. I knew a baker who kneaded a lot of dough, had quite bad carpal tunnel syndrome, didn't it? A lot of pain. This is the carpal tunnel. There's a lot of bone and muscle and tendon, ligament, blood vessels, all sorts of things get kind of jammed in there. So this is quite a good exercise for releasing that. And then tilting forwards. And you'll find also that as, when we get to the main body of exercises, those spiraling movements, they're characteristic of Tai Chi. And turn a little. And then the other way. And round. Change direction. And then back to the center and 1 foot stepping out, planting the foot. Notice how you use the other leg to help to support yourself. So I think I mentioned last time if you were here, the only really moving part, if you like, is your leg. The rest of your body is engaged in just maintaining the structure, the alignment, the stability that allows that movement to take place smoothly. And then on the other side. Now, alternating from one to the other. So there's a slight, if I exaggerate, there's a sort of shift over, which your body would do quite naturally. But what you want to do is to just observe that you're doing it. So put the foot down, move across, push down through the foot that you just moved into, and then step. Don't rush this. One more round. And come back. Now hands down by your sides. Take a moment just to sort out your posture again, because probably lost some of the alignment during that last exercise, and then fold this way. And then fisherman cast the net. And then rolling the ball in. And then pigeon spreads its wings. One more time. And pushing away. Again, notice those little rotating, spiraling movements through your arms. And that increases now. So punch with both hands. Here it's very clear. Why this exercise is often stated as a good exercise for sort of chronic tension in your shoulders. And remember, when we rotate, we know this from the earlier exercises, we engage upper part of the chest, upper back, and so on and so forth. So much of the effort, shall we put it in that way, actually comes from below the shoulders. So by the time it reaches the arms and indeed the shoulders, there's a role for just kind of shaping the movement that is already there. Now, go back to pigeon spreads its wings, do a little set of 3. The pigeon spreads its wings, pushing a wave. Punch through both fists. One more round. And then turning your hands out. and then change. One more round. And went out to the wild goose. And parting clouds. And then the dragon plucks the stars from the sky. One more time on each side. And change. And then carefully add in the turn. Once more. Skipping the sea and looking at the sky. And then grasping the tiger's ears. Change. Now grasping the tiger's ears. Go back into the wild goose. And then we're going to add just a small turn. So just turn in one direction, and the forward and backward sense on the shoulder and arm go forwards, the other goes back. But you can also think about the circular movement or part of a circle. For this, your hands drop all the way down. And again, there's that little push up. Nice and smooth. And then when you turn, let your weight move a little bit. So if it's your right shoulder goes forward, you go into the right leg. So in the direction of the front arm and back. I'm showing this, I'm exaggerating a little bit, so I'm kind of throwing my posture out. There's always, especially in the chair-based exercises, this is a very subtle change. And you can sort of supplement that with a little push down through the ball of the opposite foot. So if I go into my foot here, this foot pushes down, and again, it helps the whole movement. You feel as though your weight's now being moved across for you by the combination of feet and hips turning. This is Wind Blows the Willows. And as a development from this, we can go into the exercise we call Dragonfly Skims the Water, which basically involves raising your foot. So be careful with this, it's surprisingly strong. In the first instance, just the empty foot, the heel's already up. All you have to do is just raise your toes. And then you can put the foot down, go across, push the heel up, simply flex your ankle. Don't try and lift your leg up high. It would be difficult in the chair to do that. But there's one extra thing you can do. I talked earlier about the rotation in the shoulder. So we can also start to rotate the leg. Again, be careful with this. Just watch what I do. I raise the foot and then I rotate. And you can see how the foot is swung across when we do that. And then resting down. So that was Dragonfly Skims the Water. Again, just adjust your posture. When we do these things, our posture will always sort of go a bit skew with. So we just always take that time to come back. So take a couple of slow, gentle breaths. And then going around in a circle. Once again, just to remind yourself of this, go in the other direction. And then alternate between them, go one way and then the other. Hands in front of you, so they're just resting on the table and rolling around, following the circle. And going from here into stirring the beans, this time as you go around, you extend the arm, come back, and then in the other direction. And just let it begin to flow a little bit better. Keep your arms connected to the rest of your body. Don't overdo the movement. The basic movement with your arm now, the sort of independent movement, is just going to be that the arm extends out a little bit. Remember, And the rest of your body is doing the rest. Hands are about an inch or two above your legs, not right up here, but not down below. You want a little bit of space there. Never extending your arm to the full extent. That nice, smooth, flowing, massaging quality of movement all the way through. One more time. And once again, just rest your arms. Feel the balance of your weight. There's always about 2/3 of your weight back in your hips, but still very much aware of your feet. You know, if somebody came along and pulled your foot out, you'd kind of jerk forward. You still got some support there. If you can't feel it, again, just raise both heels, and that often gives us that little sort of boost up. And when you lower your heels, because you don't want to keep them raised because your calves will start to stiffen up, that decreases a bit, but it's still very much there. So ideally your weight will be, as it is in the standing, just behind the ball of your feet. Okay, and then once again, rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. And your arm. The other side. Chest again. And one of the things that this would do, it kind of clears your lungs, but it also encourages the heart just to speed up a little. You want to get the blood moving a little bit more quickly around the body so that when we stand up, we don't get that dizziness. Light on your belly. And of course, the other part of your body that's going to be really important when you stand is your legs, and they may well have stiffened up. So, you know, you can work the muscles of your legs quite hard. You don't want to bruise yourself. That just stimulates them a bit. Again, gets the blood flowing. Okay, and then stand. So, I'm going to bring the chair back. Let's do this little rocking exercise. You've got the chair there for a little bit of support. So, don't sort of strain in your shoulder or anything like that. But just play around with this a little. I'm going to leave the chair so I can show things a little bit better. So at the moment you're going forwards and backwards, and we've done this quite a lot, so hopefully you've got a sense for what's going on here. But now also, not also at the moment, but just moving your weight across. So again, if I exaggerate, you can see my hips gone way out of line. So this is another very subtle movement, just 60% of your weight into each leg. So we've got these two movements. And if we combine them, we can just, in a way, feel the weight moving around the outer edge of the foot and then the heel, then across the other heel, the outer edge and forwards to the toes and so on and so forth. So there's a little circle there. Try and just soften your knees and imagine your pelvis just hanging. So in a way, your pelvis, we say it's independent of the rest of the body, but it's almost as though, you know, as you go in one direction, your pelvis just adjusts to counterbalance that movement. Change direction every now and then. And when you do this, and I find especially with this one, I'm always trying to say, can I go a little bit further? So every now and then that will happen. That's not, it needn't be a problem. It's not a sort of like failure in that sense. But that's where, you know, obviously you don't want to fall. I don't want you to fall. So that's where, again, the chair can be useful. And then gradually let the circle become smaller and smaller. So it turns into a spiral. You can water spiraling down a plug hole. And so now those sort of like counter movements of the pelvis become smaller and smaller until eventually your body just comes to rest. And just take note of where you feel the weight in your feet and recognize that eventually what we want to try and do for Tai Chi is have that weight a little bit forward. So again, the focal point behind the ball of each foot. But you might not be comfortable there at the moment, so don't force yourself to be there. But part of the reason for doing that is to encourage the hips to drop back. And part of the reason is to give you this sense of a sort of potential energy, because as I stand here, although I'm quite still, actually just a slight movement forwards and I take a step. So, you know, that's quite a useful thing to bear in mind. In the standing position, you have almost enough energy to take a step. So although it's a still posture, it can be quite energizing simply standing like this, because it brings your body into an alignment that allows the energy to begin to flow. And if you were here, I was talking about the back last time, this lengthening of the back, all that is part of it. And then your hips drop back, bring your hands around and rooting down. And then Wild Goose. and parting the clouds. And shake out. 1 foot forwards. If you can remember and have a good sense for where you found that still point when we did the little sort of spiraling in exercise, imagine them connected, one in each foot, of course. So, you know, where you felt the weight, and it may not be exactly the same because, of course, in the original exercise we had our weight 50-50, and it's a bit different now, but it's a good starting point. Also, it's not just a sort of technical thing. It's about recognizing that quality in your body. And then raising your toes and your heel. Okay, and then on the other side. So that feeling, there's various ways of describing it. They're centered, rooted, and so on and so forth. But I like the term central equilibrium. That somehow has a broader and somehow more fluid sense. It can change. If you were doing this on a piece of rough ground, you can't guarantee that your feet are the same height. So that would change things. But the recognition of that quality, that state in your body will guide you. So raising your toes and your heel. So it's not so much, what we talk about being still, it's not so much an absence of movement as it is the movements are in harmony and they neutralize each other, like a kite hanging on the wind or something like that. And then step in. And if you're comfortable moving away from your support, if you're using it, just take a few steps, either forwards or backwards, depending on where you've got the room. Change direction. And even in stepping, again, presumably on a flattish floor, but it's quite interesting to try this on slightly rougher ground, on a piece of grass that's uneven or something like that. Obviously, you've got to take care. But it's quite good to sort of feel that that those movements of the pelvis and the center of the body in combination with your awareness are very effective. But now that sort of seeps to the back of your mind, and you go into Wind Blows the Willows. Not Wind Blows the Willows, Fisherman Cast a Net. We're about to go into Wind Blows the Willows. Let's do a few of these to establish the basic connections. And then the next time you go into your back foot, you're going to turn towards the front foot. Don't let your arms go up too high or extend from your body too far. The further they do, the more likely you are to cause a strain, and that will impact that feeling of equilibrium. It's hard to maintain that when your body begins to stiffen up. And as always, don't force yourself, but if you feel like it, you can start to raise your toes and your heel. Take your time, really sink down. Don't just go into the foot movement. Really feel that you're settling down. Again, using that feeling of equilibrium as a guide. And again, if you wish, just stepping in. Fine to put your toes down just to steady yourself here. It's good to do that. Okay, good. Dragonfly skimmed into water. And it's a transition. To be honest, the full dragonfly is this, not that, this, and I get it right. The full dragonfly movement is from here to here, and then you step forward. So, but it takes up quite a lot of room. But okay, so left foot forwards. Fisherman cast a net. Just a few rounds of this, feeling the connections in your body, working to move your arms. So now as you go back, settle in and turn. It doesn't have to be a big turn. It shouldn't be a big turn. You only need to move a little in the center of your body to produce a much bigger movement to your arms. Stepping in. Good. Okay. Flex your chairs. And we come back to this feeling of equilibrium. Zhongding is the Chinese term. I've mentioned it quite a lot because I think it's a really useful concept. and takes us just perhaps a little bit further than the kind of the physical alignment, the rooting down, so on and so forth. So embrace tiger, return to mountain. And there's always a little kind of pause here before we move on again. We just rest in that moment. One more time. And rest. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. So enjoy the rest of your day, whatever you're doing.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Try not to get
Thank
wet.
you.
So, thanks very much,
Bye,
everybody.
all.
Take care.
Take
Bye.
Bye
care.
for now.
Bye, Margaret. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Bye.